And welcome back to the Capitol Report. I'm Steve Lance. Former special counsel Jack Smith testifying before the House Judiciary Committee today, defending his investigations into President Trump and other conservative political figures. Joining us tonight to discuss are Democratic strategist Nate Lerner and former GOP national spokesperson Elizabeth Pipko. Great to have you both with us. So let's play an exchange tonight with Congressman Darrell Issa of California.
Why is it that no one should be informed, including the judges? As you went in to spy on these people, did you mention that you were spying on seeking records so you could find out about when conversations occurred between the U.S. Speaker of the House and the President? Did you inform the judge, or did you hold that back?
My office didn't spy on anyone.
Elizabeth, do you think that the Department of Justice is going to find a way to indict Jack Smith?
Well, look, I think it depends on what information comes out, what they find. The reality is this was an extremely polarizing time. Everybody was tuned in to this case, and it was not just because it was Donald Trump. It's because it was really the first time this had happened, right? He was being really targeted as a former president of the United States and a possible future candidate during an election cycle. That had never happened before in our country. So to watch that happen and to see how many people had questions about what was going on, including myself, how many people now years later look back at the way we feel he was unfairly targeted, only leaving us with more questions. I think it was an incredibly irresponsible thing to do at best. At worst, there's going to be something found here that was illegal and they'll find a reason to charge him. I think the problem is actually what this represents for America, because whether they find something or not, people have made up their minds, right? Half the country who doesn't like Donald Trump believes this was the right thing to do. Those that voted for Donald Trump think this was a witch hunt. And what happens is we move forward with the country really divided over what went on, how politicized it was, and not trusting the federal government ever again based on who it is that's in power.
To that point, Nate, do the Democrats sort of lose the high ground here, given the nature of the prosecutions and sort of everything that came out today when they try to say that this is in fact being politicized and targeted against them?
Well, I'm not sure how they lose the high ground when they were right to prosecute Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump did commit crimes. Let's take a moment here to remember exactly what Jack Smith was investigating Donald Trump for. I think, it's very easy years later to say, oh, this was a political investigation. This was an individual who was seeking out the president for political purposes. No, this was a career prosecutor, a career FBI agent who was investigating the president of the United States for recruiting fake electors in states that he lost in the 2020 election. Donald Trump had these fake electors signed 4 certificates that falsely claimed that Trump won those states and send those fake certificates to Congress and the National Archives. And then he tried to use that to create confusion on January 6th, so Congress and Mike Pence would reject the real results. This wasn't symbolic. These documents were legitimately done and designed to replace legitimate electoral votes. So that was Donald Trump's crime. Now, if you think that that was okay, then sure, let's prosecute Jack Smith. But the real crime here is what Donald Trump did. Jack Smith was just literally just doing his job.
But Nate, couldn't you argue that he was also a career Democrat, given the fact that he was appointed to the Department of Justice by President Obama?
Sure, but it doesn't matter because Donald Trump literally committed a crime. So he's not wrong to investigate him for that crime. And we didn't even get the real crime actually is that this didn't go to court. This got thrown out. We don't even know. We never got a court ruling on this. We never got this before a grand jury. We never got to see all the evidence because the politicized courts that Donald Trump put in place threw this out.
Representative Issa went on to accuse Jack Smith of operating politically. Here's what he had to say.
You, like the president's men for Richard Nixon, went after your political enemies. Maybe they're not your political enemies, but they sure as hell were Joe Biden's political enemies, weren't they? They were Harris's political enemies. They were the enemies of the president, and you were their arm, weren't you?
So, Elizabeth, historically, how does this moment compare to past prosecutions involving political figures?
I'm glad you phrased it that way. That's really the point I was trying to make. I don't think my fellow panelists here understood what I was saying, but the fact is this is going to go down in history and change the way that the American people view our government, view their fellow neighbor who voted differently from them, and view what it means to have a politicized country. People in the United States, many like my own parents, fled countries like, Russia to be here, Russia, Cuba, Venezuela. They fled to never see this again, to never go to sleep thinking that we had a politicized country, a politicized justice system. And the problem is that I just said people are now going to be concerned moving forward, not being able to trust anything that goes on in our legal system, depending on who it is that they voted for and if they're in the Oval Office at that point. And my fellow panelists just proved me right, because he said this did not go to court because Donald Trump rigged the system, put in judges that stood up for him, and we never actually got to find out what happened. So half the country believes Donald Trump is a criminal. Half the country believes that there was a witch hunt sent out against him
what happened,
and
though?
his supporters.
Are you refuting that that's what's happened? That's literally what happened. Like, is that not the reality, that this never went to court because Donald Trump stopped it?
Why did they launch the case if it was never going to go to court?
Because he literally recruited fake electors. Like, did that happen? Yes or no? Did Donald Trump recruit fake electors in states that he lost?
No.
You just
literally not at all.
He literally did this. Like, this is a fact. See, this is the problem: is you're conflating two things when one is reality and one is a fantasy land. He did this. This is like a known thing. We couldn't even get this to court because of politics.
With regard to the electors, Congressman Tom Tiffany brought up the fact that this was not a novel situation. It's actually taken place twice in our history and was not viewed in the way that you're framing it, Nate. But we got to get to another related case, which is not to this, but to the Justice Department. 3 anti-ICE protesters now arrested after disrupting that church service in Minnesota over the weekend. Here's a clip of Vice President J.D. Vance speaking on it.
Most of these protesters, as much as I may disagree with their politics, most of them have been peaceful, but a lot of them have not been peaceful. And if you go and storm a church, if you go and insult a federal law enforcement officer, we're going to try very hard. We're going to use every resource of the federal government to put you in prison. Respect people's rights.
So, Nate, even if the church's pastor is an ICE official, was this an appropriate form of protest, or did it cross a line?
I think it's if they were on private property and they were asked to leave, then that's fine. You can arrest them. I have no problem with arresting protesters who broke the law. That's fine. What I do have a problem with, and what I'm curious and what I'm frustrated by, is how come the administration is not prosecuting and holding accountable ICE agents that violate the civil rights of Americans? You have ICE agents coming into homes without warrants. You have ICE agents racially profiling people on the street. You have ICE agents illegally detaining Americans who have committed absolutely no crimes. You have ICE agents assaulting people, and not a single ICE agent has been held accountable for all of these crimes. And it seems like the administration is far more concerned with prosecuting peaceful protesters than they are with holding armed, masked federal agents that are swarming our neighborhoods and communities and violating American civil rights. I'm not okay with us giving up civil rights to armed federal agents, and it's really disappointing that Republicans now are.
Elizabeth, give you the last word.
Yeah, look, I think what's going on is really disgraceful. I'm sad to watch it happen in our streets. I think as someone who loves this country, you don't want to see any kind of unrest like this. You don't want to see any targeting of our actual law enforcement agents and officers. And you also don't want to see any targeting of Americans. You don't want to see mistakes being made. You don't want to see anyone hurt on our streets. Some of the clips that are going viral, I don't think they make America look good. And that's something that we don't want to happen. At the same time, if you're breaking the law and you're trying to be some kind of hero and interfere with these investigations, interfere with these officers are doing, you're going to get arrested. That's a fact. And I think if more people focused on, just trying to do the right thing, protesting peacefully and getting the job done of every American, we'd be in a better place, because that's what we should stand for here, regardless, again, of who is in the Oval Office.
Elizabeth Pipko, Nate Lerner, really appreciate you both coming on. Thank you.